Is this thing on? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunday. Megan, you of all people. And I can take this off now. Awesome. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Sunday worship at the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa, or as we like to call it, FirstU. My name is Belleperche, and along with my colleague, Lisa Sharp, I am delighted to be leading this service this morning, as well as serving as a hybrid worship associate. Whether you are taking part in this service here in the worship hall at FirstU, from your home, or from wherever else you may be, whenever you may be watching, you are always welcome here. We would especially like to join our fellow UUs from Hamilton, who we hope are joining us virtually today. We acknowledge that our FirstU campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory, and that the work of reconciliation is a responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. Our goal is to educate ourselves and all who have ears to hear, to be of service to those who are at risk, and to advocate for justice. Please take care and take advantage of online opportunities at FirstU to stay in touch during this ongoing pandemic. Seventh wave is upon us. If you are new to FirstU and would like to learn more about us, please contact us through our email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa, all one word, .ca. Following our service, please join us as well for our virtual hospitality hour. And now, here's Phil from our Board of Directors with announcements for today. Over to you, Phil.
Thank you, Guy. Two announcements. On June 19th, Elder Albert Dumont, the Ottawa English Poet Laureate, spoke to us about spirituality. Albert's play, Bloodline, tells the story of how, despite the Indian Act and the incredible trauma they have experienced for generations, Indigenous persons are resilient and can be successful in their lives. This play is taking place this Wednesday, July 20th, 7 to 8:30. You can buy tickets today after the service from Pamela. She has tickets and T-shirts available at the back. You may use a credit card if you wish. Further details about the play are available in this week's EUU newsletter. All profits from tickets and T-shirts go to advance reconciliation and promote awareness of the intergenerational impact of residential schools. Second announcement, disappointing news from the COVID task force because of the seventh wave. The seventh wave is apparently extremely transmissible, and the government of Ontario has asked that everyone get a second booster shot if they are 18 years old or over. The task force has agreed that masks are now required for all congregational activities that occur indoors at the church, and all congregational food and beverage-related indoor activities should be moved outside or postponed. Keep everyone safe. We are eager to reverse this as soon as we feel it is safe enough to do so again. So to remind you, the last couple of weeks, we have been saying that small meetings in the building could be mask-free if everyone agreed. That is no longer the case. Masks must be on. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. During the continuing pandemic, we encourage you to sign up to receive the EUU, our weekly email newsletter, to check our Facebook and Instagram pages, and our webpage for notices and updates. Our calendar continues to be as full as ever, albeit much of it online. Whatever your heritage, whatever your faith, whomever you love, and however you identify, today you are a part of our spiritual community. We were originally going to have one of our youth members join us to light the chalice, but I see one of our fellow facilitators, Jody. So with the help of Jody, who is now coming up, we light our chalice this morning to these words by Deborah Burrell. Fire consumes and casts a bright light. May our chalice flame consume our regrets for the past, our fears about the future, and our worries about today. May it light for us a path of joy and peace. And I would like to add that after spending a week with some of our extraordinary youth, I have great hope for our future. I now invite Lisa Sharp, past president of our board, trained youth advisor and OWL facilitator, and driving force behind our recent OWL-themed sexuality education camp, to start things off.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. So, FirstU has a long history of offering sexuality education based on the Our Whole Lives program, otherwise known as OWL, O-W-L. And this is a program from the Unitarian Universalist Association, or the UUA. During the first week of July, the FirstU team here at our congregation offered an OWL-based sexuality education day camp. It's the first time we've ever done this. We had 20 children, ages 10 to 13, participating, including 7 families who have some connection to our church, as well as 10 totally new families. We would like to thank our fellow facilitators, including Megan Dunn, Margaret Linton, Jody McIntosh, Amy Berube, Stephen Gabe, and Justine DeJager for their hard work and commitment in facilitating our camp program. We also had quite a few parents who volunteered to help with our lunchtime supervision. In particular, we'd like to thank David Chernyshenko and Mario Diel Juncker, whose support helped make this wonderful project happen. This morning, we intend to share with you some of the lessons that we learned at OWL Summer Camp. A lot of people think that sex education is all about putting a condom on a banana. It's actually about a lot more than that. Our content includes information about healthy relationships, bullying, and what the word consent means. We also bring in guest speakers to share with our youth their own lived experiences. For example, we had a new mother come to visit with her, I think it was an 8-week-old baby, and among other things, she shared with our youth that nobody told her that having a baby was so exhausting and lonely, and that she actually felt like a failure because she did not succeed at breastfeeding her baby for very long. Another topic we address in the program is that of body image. Our society sends us an onslaught of messages through media, family, and friends about how our bodies should look. All genders have body image issues, which can impact their self-confidence in life and can lead to serious mental health issues. OWL takes a positive approach to addressing body image, and there is evidence that focusing on positive aspects of ourselves can improve our own body positivity. At our summer camp, we asked our participants to identify some parts of their body that they are happy with. This activity provoked a discussion about how many of us aren't happy with a lot of our body parts throughout our lives. So we actually did a survey with the youth, and we have the results to share with you. But right now, we're going to invite you to participate in the same exercise right now. And at the end of this service, we're going to compare your results with the youth results. In your program, you should have received a purple piece of paper, and we're asking you to choose 3 things, 3 parts of your body that you're happy with, or that at least you're okay with, because we know that a lot of people have a hard time actually doing this. And remember, the OWL program isn't just for kids, it's for people of all ages. So we wanted you to experience what the OWL program is like by participating today. Now, what we're going to do is you're going to have 1 minute to fill it out. If you need a pen or a pencil, raise your hand and we can have someone bring you a pen or a pencil. There's a blue bin at the back there, and we can let that happen. And then what we're going to do is we're going to play a song. This is our first opening song. And towards the end of the song, I'm asking we'll give you 1 minute, and then I'm asking the ushers to collect the results from everybody with the baskets. And then we have a team of tabulators who are going to be looking at the results. Megan and Eric at the back. All right, so we're ready to go with our song? Yeah. Okay. And we'll give you the results a little bit later. So in 1972, when Simon and Garfunkel released this song, sexual activity between men was against the law in North America. 50 years later, now, Canadian gays and lesbians are currently experiencing a period of newfound safety and equality. For the first time in Canadian history, they aren't being actively suppressed by the government, but instead rely on this institution to feel secure in their orientation, with same-sex marriage legalized and hate crime laws established. They are now permitted to adopt children, can use assisted reproduction to create families, and very recently, now gay men can donate blood. From the comfort of an upper or middle-class household in 2022, it may seem strange to think of a time when gay people were outright jailed for acting on their sexuality. It may seem like a distant past, so distant that it's not worth remembering. But last week at our OWL summer camp, we had 2 young adult guests, age 30 and 35. One was gay, one was lesbian. When asked to describe their teen years, they both shared that during their high school years, they did not feel comfortable in coming out to their family or friends. So that's about 15 years ago. One grew up in the Ottawa area, the other grew up in Toronto. They did not find a safe space to be themselves until they went away to university. This taught us that the world is still not a very safe place for our LGBTQ youth. We also had some guests who identify as non-binary and trans, and you will hear a little bit more about them in a few moments. We are in a safe UU bubble. Things outside of our bubble have not entirely changed, even here in Canada. And considering what has been happening in the US and Canada's alt-right movements, there is reason to be concerned. Now, we're going to invite everyone to sing with us. It's hymn 95 in the Grey Hymnal. The song is There Is More Love Somewhere, and Jen Bernstein was supposed to be here today, but her family is not well, so she couldn't come. So we did find a video version of the song to sing along with. So we'll do that next.
More love somewhere.
So what is OWL? And there are a lot of people in this room who could give this talk probably better than I can because they've been involved in it at least as long as I have. Our sexuality touches and informs nearly every aspect of our being, from our attitudes and values to our feelings and experiences. OWL is a comprehensive lifespan sexuality education program. As Lisa mentioned, there are currently 7 different curricula that are tailored to people of all ages 5 to 6, 9 to 11, and 12 to 14, which are the groups that we had the week before last, ages 15 to 19, young adults, middle-aged adults, and older adults. Obviously, the curricula changes depending on the age and expected life experiences of the audience. OWL is predicated on the belief that sexuality includes much more than sexual behavior or having sex or doing it. Sexuality is a good and necessary part of the human experience. All persons are sexual, and we're sexual from birth to death. It's natural to express sexual feelings and our sexuality in many ways. People engage in healthy sexual behavior for many reasons, including to express caring and love, to experience intimacy and connection with someone, to share pleasure, to create new life, and to have fun and relax. Healthy sexuality in our society can be complicated by violence, exploitation, alienation, dishonesty, abuse of power, and the objectification of people and their sexuality. This last point can be especially true for those who are not straight, not cisgendered, and non-gender conforming. OWL centers the idea that knowledge is power. You probably can't see my button from down there, but it says just say no, K-N-O-W. That's sort of the mantra of OWL. And that participants will make better choices if they have access to comprehensive knowledge of the benefits and risks of sexual behavior and how to reduce those risks. We treat our participants with dignity, and we respect their privacy and confidentiality. Except for reports of criminal behavior or threats of harm to self or others, what happens in OWL stays in OWL. That's a big thing for our youth. The graphic behind me, there we go. The graphic behind me is the key to the program, the Circles of Sexuality. These 5 circles cover the full spectrum of the program. The circle on the bottom left, sexual health and reproduction, is what most people think of when they hear sexuality education. Certainly, knowledge of physiology and anatomy, sexually transmitted infections, contraception, pregnancy, and various sexual behaviors is foundational. But it's also a very narrow view of sexuality. In OWL, we pay equal or greater attention to sexual identity, which we will touch on in more detail a bit later on, intimacy and topics of caring, sharing, trust, and risk-taking, sensuality and topics of mental and physical stimuli, our image of ourselves, our fantasies, and our desire to be touched, and sexualization and power, which can range from flirting and consensual seduction all the way through to harassment and sexual assault. A key concept that we cover is consent, and we'll be talking about that a little later as well. And I'd like to invite Reverend Ellen Bell up to do Joys and Sorrows, please.
There were no personal joys and sorrows that I was aware of for this week, but I will put in a stone of joy and congratulations to the OWL folks and the wonderful work that they do, and a stone for all the joys and sorrows kept in our hearts.
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're...
First me, then that. It's all good. As you probably guessed, we're going to be talking about consent next. Consent is an important concept in many areas of our lives, and it requires knowledge and capacity and an awareness of power and coercion. It is difficult or even impossible to consent when you have no knowledge of what you're consenting to. Many people have been buttonholed at their front doors and convinced to sign contracts, and fortunately our law allows those contracts to be voided because there's no way that people can consent to that level of detail in that time. This is why OWL seeks to educate participants in a wide range of sexuality issues in a safe and respectful environment. When faced with a decision in the heat of the moment, they will have had the opportunity to consider the issue in a low-stress, low-pressure environment and can clearly communicate their informed decision to their partner at the time it's required. We also discuss power imbalances due to age, size, wealth, experience, and position, and the different types of coercion that could be employed to influence a decision. Being able to recognize these elements makes our youth better partners and will allow them to recognize problematic behaviors in others and take appropriate action, such as leaving or intervening if they are a witness and if it is safe to do so. Our youth were very well informed on this topic and eager to discuss it in depth. They actually recommended the video we're about to watch, and I hope you enjoy it as much as we did.
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they go, "Oh my God, I would love a cup of tea, thank you." Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you can make them a cup of tea, or not, but be aware that they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important bit, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you're entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say, "No thank you," then don't make them tea. At all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, "Yes, please, that's kind of you." And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't. Some people change their mind in the time it takes to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk. And it's okay for people to change their mind, and you are still not entitled to watch them drink it. And if they are unconscious, don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea, and they can't answer the question, "Do you want tea?" because they're unconscious. Okay, maybe they were conscious when you asked them if they wanted tea, and they said yes, but in the time it took you to boil the kettle or brew the tea and add the milk, they are now unconscious. You should just put the tea down, make sure the unconscious person is safe, and this is the important part again, don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure, but unconscious people don't want tea. If someone said yes to tea, started drinking it, and then passed out before they'd finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they are safe, because unconscious people don't want tea. Trust me on this. If someone said yes to tea around your house last Saturday, that doesn't mean they want you to make them tea all the time. They don't want you to come around to their place unexpectedly and make them tea and force them to drink it, going, "But you wanted tea last week," or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat going, "But you wanted tea last night." If you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you are able to understand when people don't want tea, then how hard is it to understand when it comes to sex? Whether it's tea or sex, consent is everything. And on that note, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea.
Thames Valley Police Force in the United Kingdom. So now I'm going to talk just a little bit about the harm reduction approach that we use in our OWL program here at FirstU. So we use a harm reduction approach which focuses on providing children and youth with tools that they need in order to be able to make good decisions throughout their lives. Harm reduction principles include the following. First, we accept that people of all ages have a need for intimacy, both physically and psychologically. Next, sexual activity can include a continuum of behaviors, and we know that some behaviors are clearly safer than others. As well, while we believe that parents are the primary educators for their children, once they reach adolescence, youth become the primary decision makers for their own bodies and need support in making healthy decisions at a critical time in their lives and going forward. So how do we teach critical decision making to youth? Well, we start with the 10-year-olds, 10 and 11-year-olds. We introduce to them an activity called values voting, where kids have to choose whether they agree or disagree with statements. And we start with easy statements like, cats are better than dogs, or chocolate ice cream is the best kind of ice cream. The youth are then asked to take a position and then be ready to defend their position. Sometimes they convince people to change their minds with their positions. Then, as kids get older, then we move on to more serious topics. For the younger kids, we say things like, it's okay for boys to cry, or girls are too emotional. Now, many kids start the program full of anxiety. They're like, what the heck is going on? My parents are sending me to this crazy camp about sex. They don't want to be there. On day one, none of them want to be there. And they don't want to say anything. But once they realize that we really want to hear what they have to say, the floodgates open, and they all actively participate. In fact, on day one, we always say to them, give us one day to convince you that you want to be here. And they stay. This type of activity is continued with older youth in the older programs, where everyone gets a chance to share their opinions and discuss serious topics. For example, with the older group in the OWL camp, we talked about unplanned pregnancy options. And we talked about depression and suicide. Part of the harm reduction model involves helping youth lower their anxiety level about safety practices. For example, it's important to let kids this age become familiar and comfortable with condoms. As they play with condoms and they get to make balloons and make water balloons, we have a condom obstacle course that we have, their anxiety turns to laughter and they're not afraid anymore. In fact, this year, one of the things we learned from camp is that we need to use condoms that have nice tropical smells to get the youth to be willing to touch them, because they were really scared to touch them. And they did after we got the nicer condoms. And finally, one of the most important aspects of the OWL program is that we build community. Participants make new friends and have a shared experience of learning profound information that will change their lives. They're never going to forget this experience. In addition, our program provides a safe space for youth to come together and explore their own feelings about their gender identity, their sexual orientation, and learn how to be allies for those in the LGBTQ community. In our summer camp, we had 4 youth out of 20, 2 who were 11 years old, who identified as non-binary or trans. Because of this, we invited some young adult guest speakers who are non-binary or trans. They talked about their own growing up experiences and how their family, especially their parents and grandparents, did not understand that a person's gender identity might be different than the gender they were assigned at birth. Their parents kept referring it to a phase that they were going through, even though when they came out, they were in their 20s. This was very upsetting to them. And I think at that point really hit, like the youth really understood that. And now we would like to share a little video with you about this issue. In our planning, we discovered a large group of sex education videos online by amaze.org. And if you have children or youth or grandchildren in your lives, This is a great resource to give to parents, and when we had our parent information meeting, we showed some of these videos to the parents. We didn't show the kids all the videos, but we showed them a few. So we're going to show you one of them. Range of gender identities.
All right, folks, here we go. A romaine and kale salad with avocado, cucumber, shishito peppers, and 4 kinds of cheese. Sprinkled in balsamic straight from Italy.
Wow! In my day, salads only had 2 ingredients. A rock-hard wedge of iceberg lettuce and a stinky old dried-up tomato.
Sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to eat fast. Alex is stopping by in a few minutes to work on our robotics project.
Alex, is that the girl with that weird dog? Or the boy with the hat with the wings that flap?
No, Uncle Jay. This is Alex.
Oh, okay, I remember. A very nice young... come to think of it, well, is Alex a boy or a girl?
Actually, Alex doesn't define themselves as boy or girl.
What else is there?
Back in your day, most people understood the world in terms of just boys and girls. But now, we know gender is more complex than that.
Wait, aren't we just talking about whether you're born with a or a hee?
When you're born, your sex is assigned in a medical way, but the sex listed on your birth certificate may not necessarily match your gender identity.
Gender identity is a person's inner experience of who they are in terms of gender, their deep personal sense of being male, female, a blend of both, or neither.
And while many people have a gender identity that's the same as their assigned birth sex of female or male, that's not always the case, because gender exists on a spectrum. Like transgender, which means a person whose gender identity is not consistent with their assigned birth sex. Non-binary, which means a person whose identity doesn't fall in the category of either male or female. And genderqueer or gender fluid, which means a person who does not identify themselves as having a specific gender at all.
Does gender identity have to do with being straight or gay?
Actually, no. Gender identity has to do with the way you feel about yourself, while sexual orientation is based on the way you feel toward others, the people you may or may not be attracted to.
You know, I really like Alex, and I can tell they're a good friend to you, but I'm still pretty confused about all of this.
That's okay. You don't have to fully understand someone to respect them. To start, try not to make any assumptions about a person's gender, and use the name and pronouns that they ask you to. Above all, be a friend or ally for people of all gender identities.
That's right, Mom. Oh, Alex is here. Come on in.
Hey, everyone.
Oh, hey, Alex. Care for some salad? The balsamic's right from Italy, you know.
Growing up, my world was straight, cisgendered, and gender conforming. I didn't have to worry about being ostracized, persecuted, or even arrested and jailed for who I loved, who I was, or how I presented to the world. It was not really until I went to university that I began to see the broader world around me, and even later until I understood the many challenges and barriers that I never encountered, but others did. One of the reasons that I stay with the OWL program is to help create safe spaces for all youth and to educate them so that they are not hampered by my youthful ignorance. I'm happy to say that this was not an issue with the youth at our camp earlier this month. They are knowledgeable, active, and passionate about 2S LGBTQI issues, and even corrected some of the materials that we used. Can you put on the genderbread person? There we go. On the screen above me, you will see the genderbread person. This graphic and accompanying text was developed by genderbread.org, and the version behind me was adapted by Egal, a Canadian not-for-profit whose mission is to improve the lives of 2S LGBTQI people in Canada and to enhance the global response to 2S LGBTQI issues. This graphic demonstrates the complexity and diversity of biological sex, the parts you were born with, gender identity, who you know yourself to be, and gender expression, how you present yourself to the world. It shows these three aspects of human sexuality as intersecting spectra with a rich and potentially changing variety of expressions depending on the person and the day. Concepts that I have worked hard to understand and embrace come easily to our youth, and this gives me great hope for our future.
And now we're going to ask for our results from our survey. I'll get Megan to come up here. Thanks, you guys. Okay. Wow. I've got all the results here. This is very interesting because I know what the youth one looks like, which I'm going to show you. And so what we decided to do with the youth and then now with you is to make a word cloud out of this, out of the results. So the largest words that you see on here are the highest number of positive responses. So as you can see, hair and eyes and eyelashes were the most popular. And then after that, it was height. So some people like their height. And then you'll see the rest of them are all written all around, all the, in different sizes. But the smaller it is, the less people. And I can tell you that the least popular things were ears, back, hips, and feet, toes. And nobody checked off private parts. Now, I'm going to show you the youth response. And this was the 12 and 13-year-olds. So actually, it's quite similar because their three top ones were hair, height, and eyelashes. So I think things don't change much throughout our lives, right? And yet, but some of them said private parts, just so you know. So we used the choices that they came up with, because they weren't given a list like this. We just said brainstorm your favorite parts, and this is what they came up with. So that's how we came up with our list. But I think this shows us that we all have issues with body image and being positive about our own bodies and about other people's bodies. So we had a really great talk with the youth about that. And now I'm handing it back over to Guy.
That's a great idea. Our last topic for this morning is on bullying and bystander education. A really big topic in OWL and for our youth. Bullying can leave victims with emotional and physical scars, and in extreme cases can drive some to end their lives. Whether motivated by fear, self-loathing, a desire to rise up by pushing others down, or simply a severe lack of empathy, bullies abuse, dominate, coerce, and intimidate their victims. Victim selection is often based on a perceived flaw that, in the bully's mind, makes the victim lesser. They're tall or short, underweight or overweight, they dress differently, they speak differently, they act differently, or they look different. Sadly, many members of the 2S LGBTQI community are victims of bullying and harassment, made to feel inferior and unworthy of love and respect. A key goal of the OWL program, especially for youth, is to create safe spaces for all youth where they can fully express themselves in a safe and positive environment, and where they can learn to disrupt bullying behaviors through avoidance and de-escalation. Many of us, and I'm talking about us in this room and online, have likely participated in bullying at various points in our lives, often indirectly, by contributing to the sense of isolation for the victim, by passing on a rumor or gossiping, or simply turning a blind eye to bullying behavior. OWL strives to increase our awareness and empathy so that we can recognize those negative behaviors in ourselves and others, and we can work to include rather than exclude. Our first 3 UU principles call us to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and acceptance of one another. Recognizing and disrupting bullying, supporting the victims, and working to bring those who bully into community is the UU and the human thing to do. And now our invitation to offering. Get our finance manager slide up. There we go. This congregation has a long history of care, vitality, and bringing people together to move the arc of justice forward, just as we've tried to illustrate this morning. We've been able to live into our hopes and dreams because of the generosity of those within and beyond this community. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or anywhere else at all, you are part of this community. To make a gift in support of the work of this congregation, you don't need to use the baskets that will soon be making their way amongst the pews. Wherever you are invited to go to our website or contact our finance manager, that's her address right there, to find out how to make a donation or to keep up with your pledge. Our gifts are freely given and gratefully received. We dedicate these gifts to the work of this community of faith, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, and loving one another. While we are passing the baskets through the pews at FirstU, please enjoy this moving version of the song True Colors, originally done by Cyndi Lauper, and this time it is done by Artists Against Bullying. The choice and placement of this song should be obvious from our previous topic. So many of you may have noticed, I hope you've noticed, the lovely and diverse signs that are in front of the podium and the various other places. These signs were made by all of our youth, all the way the 10, 11-year-olds and 12, 13-year-olds on the final afternoon of the week. And we had asked them to come together in what we called Pride Parade to, in part, put together signs to carry during our participation in Ottawa's Pride Parade coming up on August 28th. For those who are unaware, this church has a history of participating in there, and this year will be no exception. We hope there's going to be a really strong turnout. These are what our youth came up with, and I think they did an awesome, awesome job. So before we begin to close this time of worship and reflection, a reminder that our hospitality hour will begin at 11:30 a.m. on Zoom. And Brent, do we still have no in-house gathering, just from your homes or wherever you can connect remotely. As we extinguish our chalice this morning, come on up, Lisa. Adapted from let these words, adapted from fairplanet.org, guide and inspire us. When it comes to building our global future, there is no bigger asset than today's youth. This is the generation that will solve future crises, lead countries, write policies, innovate and preserve or destroy democracies and systems of justice. Let us equip them, support them, guide them, and follow them as they lead us into the future that we all hope for. This morning's chalice is extinguished, but our connections and our faith remain. Go in peace, go in love, go in joy. And our postlude.